Hello there. This is Iman Al Hajali, an English senior student at the Islamic University of Gaza. So, today, inshallah, I'm going to give a presentation about the multimodal discourse, about which my colleagues have been giving their presentations. Thus, I brought two pictures to thoroughly analyze them with you. So, let's get started. Just before I start, I just want to remind you of the concept of multimodality. This concept that highlights the idea that we do not rely only on words to talk about the world in which we live. Rather, we have other elements from which we can benefit, like pictures, sounds, colors, animation, etc. In addition to that, we can say that, or we have to keep in our minds the meta functions, which provide us with like a framework for thinking about the meanings of images. And these meta functions are, as we can see here, the representational meta function, the second one, the interpersonal meta function, and the last one, the textual meta function. Okay, so here's the first picture that I brought, as you can see. By the way, this is like a cover for a film called The Hobbit. And if you don't know the meaning of the word The Hobbit, it means like, or it refers to more than one character, item, or concept. Okay, so let's start the analysis. Firstly, as for the ideational or the representational metafunction, what is the main idea that the producer wants us to get? We can also ask ourselves what's communicated and what are the different elements that he uses in the picture. Moreover, what are the different symbols and signs that he uses to express this idea, the color, the font size, etc. So it's a crystal clear. Sorry, it's a crystal clear. There's like a man here, as you can see. There's a man who is like trying to get out of his miserable. We can say like his miserable, gloomy, maybe a gloomy place. To much more like you can see here, to much more optimistic or peaceful one. Also, we can notice the significance of color here. So, and the light or brightness outside the place from which he's trying to get out. So the mode of black color here, or the brown or the black color here, can tell us about the sadness or the sorrow, the like the miserable atmosphere that this is like this person might experience in his life. Um, Also, we can see other elements, or we can obviously see like lots of darkness in most of the picture here. And this darkness like represents the gigantic amount of maybe you can say like the suffering, the hardships that he faces. And on the other hand, we can notice here the light, or we can notice here the light coming in from the sunshine here, from the sunshine, and this emphasizes the idea of hope and optimism. Maybe we can see, or we can say, like this person at the end of his suffering managed to achieve what he was seeking for. And the mode of color here is significant, as we can notice here in this picture. We can also say, in addition to that, we can notice the symbol of the door here, the door. So the symbol of the door here, which is like a gate for a new cheerful life. So it seems to me that this is like maybe a tunnel under the ground, or a tunnel under the ground, or something like this. And they say, as we know, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. So This is for the ideational or the representational metafunction. But what about the interpersonal metafunction? So as for the interpersonal metafunction, do we feel involved to this image? Absolutely, yes, because it represents our life as a human beings, our life or the life that's full of hardships and obstacles. Okay, what about the affection, our feelings? How do we feel when we look at this picture? So by all means, we feel hopeful, we feel optimist. So it gives us like a move forward to keep going despite all the tough things that we face. And the last or the final metafunction is the textual metafunction. And this metafunction is mainly about, let's say, about how the different elements are combined in order to build up a text. So we can see the Hobbit here. Here we can see it. It's like written in the center of the page, and this is like a hint for us that this is like the main character or the main characters or maybe the protagonist in this film. All right. So let's look at this image. Let's like analyze it as the first picture. What is the main idea of this image? What does the producer wants us to get from it? And what are the different elements, like let's say, that he uses to express different ideas? And if there are like any significant symbols to communicate these ideas. So the main idea of this image is like the Palestinian prisoners' hunger strike in the Israeli prisons. So as we can see here, the way this Palestinian man or the Palestinian prisoner, how is like he is sitting on the ground. This way like represents we can say like this way represents the suffering of all the other prisoners as they are let's say they are left in horrifying, terrible cages in which they are tortured and, let's say, left without getting their lowest needs. So we feel involved to this picture by all means. Let's say another thing, or in addition to the first point, we can clearly notice his thorny clothes here and his puffy hair. So that's or that also represents the suffering and the miserable life from which they suffer. So also we can notice here the drawing of the spider silk in the image. It's like has a very strong significance for which we have to pay attention. So it seems to us from the first glance that or from the first glance, it seems to us as humans that the spider silk is weak and fragile. But the fact is quite different, or is quite the opposite, as it's one of the strongest places mentioned in the Holy Quran. And this is like a symbol for the Palestinian, let's say, the Palestinian prisoners who seem weak under the overwhelming torture of the Israeli occupation, but they are, let's say, they are stronger than that. They continue to resist and express their right of living, like let's say, the right of living a decent life as the others. For another thing, the open mouth here, as we can see, represents that they are being, let's say, prevented and dismissed from speaking up their right to live peacefully. Uh, but by presenting or by, let's say, preventing themselves from eating, and in this case, they can speak up and reach out their voice to the whole world. We can also see the mode of color here in this picture. So, what about the mode of color? So what's the most color here presented in this picture? So the gray and to some extent the black color here. So it's the biggest proportion in this image. So this is significant because let's say because it represents the miserable life of those prisoners, the suffering and their sadness. Um, as for the other, or for another metafunction, is the interpersonal metafunction. So, how do we feel when we look at this image? Do we feel empowered or disempowered? So actually, we feel like, or we can feel sympathy. We can sympathize with those people, Palestinian prisoners, but at the same time, they like give us hope. They give us like they empower us to resist and to be steadfast and to raise to speak up and represent ourselves as Palestinian people, as the indigenous people of this land, to speak up and to reach out our voice to the whole world. And finally, the textual metafunction. Here, the layout, the size of this statement, معركة الأمعاء الخاوية في سجون الاحتلال. So, and the color of this text. So, it represents the gloomy, the suffering, the gloomy atmosphere, the suffering, the hardships that the Palestinian prisoners face in the Israeli, let's say, the Israeli cages, and the violence or the violence and the horrible actions committed by the Israeli occupation. So that's all for today. I hope that you got benefit from this presentation. That's all. Thank you.